Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, 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 whoop. On today's episode, we have a very special guest right here in our home studio that will be sharing one of his past projects. You, the listener, we're going to let you decide if it was good or bad or just plain ugly. But before we begin, here is today's badassery bestowment. The number one reason why people give up so fast is because they tend to look at how far they still have to go instead of how far they've gotten. I am so guilty of this. I see other investors doing amazing things, but if I just stop and take a moment to reflect, I remember it was only a few short years ago that I was still working for the man. I now get to wake up every day and run my life the way I want to. So, when you are feeling like giving up, take a breath and remember you didn't come this far to only come this far. So, on to today's episode. We have a very special guest. We have Bret Beaman in the house.
What?
Yes, he is a RAIN member. We are so happy to have him. He also is the godfather to our son Kevin, our black dog. And we may have had a few drinks, just so you know.
Father.
He's the dog father. So, Bret, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. Give us a quick background. Tell us about you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. First thing, I don't know if I have a short background, but I grew up in real estate. My father was a custom and spec home builder here in the Triangle area. I was born and raised here in Raleigh. Dad built these giant $800,000 to $1 million houses with hope somebody would come and buy them. He didn't have. Sometimes he didn't have the buyer in mind first. He didn't build it for somebody. But we grew up in a 100-year-old house, and my dad taught my brother and I how to fix everything in a house.
Awesome.
Whenever something broke, he called us over and said, "Hey, let me teach you how to fix this." And my brother and I complained and whined and cried. And then his response was always, "Well, what if I'm not here one day?"
Did he talk like that?
That's probably not the voice I should use for my dad. But, what if I'm not here one day? So yeah, he taught me how to fix everything. And I know I wanted rental properties. I went to graduate school, became a physical therapist.
You're a doctor.
Dr. What?
Dr. Bret.
First thing I did out of grad school was buy a duplex to fix up half of it and live in that and then rent out the other half. And because I wanted to use everything I learned, I thought it'd be fun. And that started the career, bought it, fixed it up. That's now a rental property I have. And it's turned out great. Real estate investing education company came into town. We're offering to teach you how to flip houses using, quote, other people's money. Signed up with them, and that started the whole journey.
Awesome. So today you are going to tell us about one of your past projects. And I'm excited because I know you're a master at the BRRRR strategy. So this one is a BRRRR strategy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. So let's quickly talk about the property. First of all, where is it located?
So this one is in Raleigh. It is actually across the street from that duplex that I first bought when I got out of school.
Tell us a little bit about the property, beds and baths. What year was it built?
I want to say it was built in the mid 80s, maybe 86-ish. Most of this street is a bunch of duplexes and triplexes, but when they were built, they were individually deeded. So I technically they're townhouses. I bought two of them that were attached together, so it looks like a duplex. And then across the street was a triplex, but again, individually deeded, so each one has a different owner. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, just under 1,300 square feet. So they're they need a little bit of a facelift. They weren't too bad, but honestly, I'll tell you how I found this one. I looked out the window one day, and so my duplex was up. It was on one side of the street. This other house that we're talking about is on the other side of the street. And I looked out the kitchen window, and you saw a sign stuck on the window across the street.
So you were literally living across the street from this house.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But you see a sign stuck on the window, and being nosy and interested in real estate, I took a closer look, and it's one of those sheriff signs that somebody gets evicted from a house, and a sheriff put the sign in the window that says, "People have been evicted. Nobody can live here. GTFO."
Get the frick out.
That's right. So I looked inside, and the place was beat up. There was holes in the wall. The carpet was terrible. So I wrote the guy a letter. I was like, "Hey man, I live across the street from this house, and I want to buy it."
So how much did he want for it?
Well, it took 4 or 5 months, and I wrote him 2 or 3 letters, and he finally called me, and we started talking about it. And I think I want to say he wanted like 80,000, maybe somewhere around there. This has been a while. There's been a lot of houses since then, but we ended up talking with him and negotiating, and I bought it for 72,000.
Nice. And what do you think the estimated ARV? Well, were you going to flip it and then try to sell it at this point? Did you know you were going to keep it?
So I think this was a while ago, but I think my goal was to keep this one because I already had 2 rental properties, or a rental property across the street from it.
So what did you think at the time you could get rent for it?
So I think at that time, the unit next to me. So all these
you said unit.
All these places were basically the same. So the duplex that I had, each side was the exact same layout. And this one was an end unit on the building across the street, and same layout as my other 2. So I basically had already flipped this property twice already.
Okay.
So I forgot your question.
What we thought the rents could be at the time.
So I wanted to make sure it would work.
Again, we were drinking, people, just so you know.
I wanted to make sure it would work as a flip. So if nobody could rent it out, or if I had to sell it, that it would sell. And I think I estimated that I could sell it for $115, maybe $120.
Okay.
And I had it under contract for $72. I estimated about $8,000 in work. And I knew that my unit that I was living in at that time and the one next door, I could probably rent for, I think I was renting the one next door for $1,250 a month.
Okay.
So, I mean, those are pretty good numbers there. So I figured I could rent it for maybe $1,250, maybe a little bit less.
Gotcha. And what type of work did you need to do to this place? Because you said it was pretty trashed.
Yeah, so you get inside, and the inside smelled terrible.
Smelled terrible?
Inside smelled terrible. They had taken up all of the carpet. The walls downstairs were painted red. Like murder red.
Okay, my kitchen's painted, or my dining room's painted red. Careful where you go here. I'm just saying.
Yours looks good. This looks like a murder house. Looks like somebody was painting over blood.
Okay.
When the house was vacant, they put a new roof on it. They put a new roof on it, spent the money for it, and then sold it to me, which is great. So I didn't have to fix the roof. There is a shed on the back of the house. It's attached to the back of the house. It's like an exterior storage room that was basically falling away from the house. So the biggest thing that we had to do, everything else was cosmetic, but we had to get that reattached to the house. I think we cleaned up things. I don't even think we changed out the countertops or the sinks. Probably put in new appliances.
When did this happen? What year was this?
This was like my 3rd deal ever. So maybe 2016, 2015, something like that.
Gotcha.
We bought it. We're fixing it up. Paint, carpet.
How did you finance it? When you say you bought it, how did you finance it?
So we, same way I buy just about everything, is I got a private lender. I said, hey, I think this house, I've got it under contract for $72,000. My repair numbers are about 8,000. I think we could probably sell it if we have to for 115, 120. And she let me borrow 80,000. So she gave me all the money I needed to buy it and to fix it up. Easy peasy.
Do you remember what the interest rate was?
Probably 10%.
Okay, not bad at all.
No, really good.
And what was your projected timeline to renovate it?
So that would, oh man, there's stories involved in that. So I think we were shooting for maybe 6 weeks, something like that. Now I could turn that over in a week, but I wanted to change out like the outlets and light fixtures and things like that, and I actually did a bunch of that work myself. Oh, here's a hurdle. So I don't know who was living there or why they decided to do this, but when I was going around changing the outlets, because they were that old almond color that had probably been there for 30 years, taking out the outlets, and the outlets on almost all the wall outlets and light switches. You take off the panel and they've got a little box in there. Somebody had gone around and filled all those with that expanding foam. I guess they had drafts or something, but it was all filled up with foam. And so I had, in order to change out the switches and the outlets, I had to dig the wires out from this foam. There was a dead mouse in one of these.
Oh my gosh.
So that was a pain in the butt. But honestly, at the end of the day, it's not a big hurdle.
So that was a big surprise. Were there any other surprises?
So I got one of my guys, just general laborers, to paint kills on the floor, and kills covers up smells. Just paint the whole subfloor. The guy painted the tile in front of the front door. Literally painted it with kills. It's tile. You don't paint tile. So we had to tear that up.
Oh gosh. Yeah. So, but at this point, you could have listed it, but instead you decided to keep it?
So you get the rehab done, and I decided to go ahead and try and rent it because, if it doesn't rent for what I want it to rent for, I can always sell it. So I tried to rent it, and so what I do with the BRRRR strategy is I look at how much I'm going to be into the property. So for this one, with purchase price of $72,000, repairs of $8,000, I'm going to be into it for $80,000 plus interest, and then closing costs at the back end when you refinance.
Okay, let's just stop for a second. And for our listeners, in case they don't know what the BRRRR strategy is, because you are master of the BRRRR strategy. So what does BRRRR stand for?
So BRRRR is BRRRR. Stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So basically, with this strategy, you can end up owning rental properties for little to no money out of your own pocket. And these properties should have equity. And if you do it, it just depends how you want. But the way I do it, they have to cash flow. So basically, my goal is to maximize my return on investment. So to have as little money out of my own pocket into these properties as possible, and have them pay me money every single month over the mortgage and have equity in them. So a bank will refinance a rental property. Most banks.
So you buy it with private money. This woman gave you $80,000 that covered the 72 purchase price, and plus the repairs.
Yes.
And then you were paying her 10% interest. Now, was that 10% interest paid at the end or throughout? Or
so yeah, I didn't make monthly payments.
Okay.
It was principal and interest at the end once we refinanced the property.
Okay, so you bought it, you rehabbed it. As this person is renting it, they're paying you. How much were the rents in the beginning? Do you remember?
So I've lucked out. I have one of those really good tenants that hasn't moved out. It's been 4 years now.
It's the same person that's been there the whole time? So what do they pay in rent?
We get $11.50 a month for this house.
Okay, so hold on a second.
I'll tell you, hold on. It's $11.50 a month.
So you buy it with somebody else's money. You renovate it with somebody else's money. Now you're renting it, and where do those rent checks go?
So the rent checks will pay the mortgage.
Yeah. Well, no, because it's still in the private money at this point.
Well, we only got maybe 1 or 2 months of rent before we refinance.
Okay, so a lot of times when you refi rental, you have to what's called season it and have a renter in there for 6 months. So you have a relationship with a bank where you don't need to have it seasoned. Is that correct?
So depending on the bank,
right,
you don't have to have it rented for 6 months. You have to have had the loan for 6 months.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so depending on the bank and depending on what the bank does with your loan, because they'll sell them to Fannie or Freddie, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they buy mortgages. Depending on the guidelines in the bank, they will look for a seasoning, which means that you've had the loan for X number of months.
Okay.
The minimum I've heard is 6. Well, it depends on the bank. Some are 6, some are 12, some are none. I don't know why, but even the ones that they sell to Fannie and Freddie,
So you had this renter in there for 1 or 2 months.
I just got in there for 1 or 2 months.
Okay, so you're still getting $11.50 a month at this point. Okay, so now you have $2,300 in addition, and you have not put any of your own money into this. That was the point I was getting to. Okay, so you bought it with private money. You renovated it with this private money. You put a renter in there, and now you are making money going to your bank account. And then you refi. So when you go to refinance it, what did you have to bring to the table? What were your refinancing costs?
All right. So when we went to refinance this, I know you wanted me to get to that so bad.
This number, I'm just extremely jealous. He already told me before we recorded this, so I'm excited for him to get to it. But go ahead, give us the background.
So if you're going to make this strategy work, you have to know roughly how much your monthly mortgage payment is going to be. So I knew I was going to be into it for about 80, probably a little bit more than that. So there are apps out there where you can put in how much your mortgage amount is. This one, I just put in like $85,000. What your taxes are each year, what the taxes, insurance, because that's going to go into your monthly payments. So you have the $85,000. You've got your interest that you're going to be paying and the years. So how long it's amortized, that loan. So $85,000 over 30 years at, I think this was like 4.5% interest, something like that. I have to go back and look. But I estimated that we were probably going to be about $550 to $600 a month in mortgage payments for this. So if I can rent it for $11.50 a month, then things are going well. So when it finally came down to it, we got a mortgage. The mortgage is $88,000.
But so if the purchase price was $72,000, how is it $88,000?
Purchase price is $72,000. I borrowed $80,000. Plus we had to pay her interest, so that came out of that. And then you got closing costs for the attorney.
But you fix it up.
Lender costs.
So you fix it up, and now it's appraising for higher.
We haven't talked about appraisals yet.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So the mortgage.
I just want to know how we get to that 88.
The mortgage amount was $88,000.
Okay.
Because you've got interest to your lender, you've got closing costs to the attorney to close the deal, and you've got lender costs from the lender, points, interest, that kind of thing. All these things that you have to pay for when you refinance or buy a house. So in order to refinance it, they get it appraised. This was 4 years ago now. The house appraised for $135,000.
Wow.
So there's almost $50,000 in equity.
Wow.
The mortgage payments were $590 a month.
I have to have a drink. Hold on.
The rent's $11.50. So every month, the rent pays the mortgage and puts $560 a month in my pocket. And we've got $50,000 in equity. And I had to bring to the table $92.70, something like that. And the only reason I had to bring money to the table for this one was because I didn't want to have to wait 2 more weeks to go back through underwriting for them to raise my loan amount $92.
This is amazing. So I'm gonna go ahead and tell the listeners this is a slam dunk. Okay, so I said before we were gonna let you decide if this was good or bad or just plain ugly. This is amazing, and you still own this property, and the same renter is in there.
Yeah. So if you want to look at it like this, would you pay $92 for something that basically puts $50,000 in your pocket, just add to your net worth, $50,000, plus over $500 a month in your pocket every single month. I'd pay $92 for that every day of the week.
That's amazing. I'm so impressed. And other people can do this. This is, go out there and research the BRRRR strategy. This is like slam dunk project. So after completing this project, were there any main takeaways from this?
I guess the biggest thing I learned from this is that this does work. You can do it. I think this was the first BRRRR that I did.
How many more BRRRRs have you done?
5 or 6, something like that.
Nice.
I don't even know. But it's a really easy way to buy properties that have equity built into them that, again, are as soon as the value of the property goes up, your equity goes up. Rents only go up. So if you get a 30-year mortgage, my mortgage is going to be $590 a month for just about the rest of the time I own this house. And I imagine in 5 or 6 years, the rent over there is going to be $200 higher. So really easy way to basically start investing.
This is amazing. This is amazing. And after you completed this project, will you do any future projects differently? Like, did you learn anything? I mean, besides the foam and the outlets.
So what I learned from this one, this was really early on in my career. I knew how to do the work, so I did a bunch of the work. What I really learned from this was I'm not going to spend 2 days ever again changing outlets, doing these minor repair tasks on a property, because I could spend those 2 days finding the next property to do the same thing. So I learned to pay somebody to save your time.
That's awesome. And time is money. And that's being a technician. We're learning, the technician from the E-Myth. You read that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the E-Myth, they tell you to, yes, everyone kind of needs to be a technician at one point, but then you got to ramp yourself up to the management position and then become the entrepreneur at the top of that triangle. So thank you for sharing that. Total slam dunk BRRRR strategy. Now, I like to end all of my podcasts with what makes you a badass. And that's my acronym for my questions here. So badass, Bret. The first letter is B for book. What is a book besides the Bible that has made a huge, we totally talked about this beforehand. What is a book that made a huge difference in your life besides the Bible?
So I've got 2. The first one that every single buddy says.
Every single buddy?
Every single buddy. Everybody. So what everybody says is Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
That's the purple Bible.
The purple Bible. But the one that after that made probably the biggest difference is called Extreme Ownership.
Oh, I don't know this one.
This one is the one that I recommend to everybody. This one is written by Jocko Willink.
I know Jocko.
Yeah, he is a motivational speaker, but he was a Navy SEAL. The Extreme Ownership is about how if anything in your life happens, positive or negative, you have some ownership in that. If you don't take responsibility for everything in your life, then you can't control anything in your life, even the smallest things. This book, and I would recommend anybody not just read it, but get the Audible, get the audio book, because Jocko Willink and the other Navy SEAL that he wrote the book with, they read this book to you, and they relate.
He has the best voice. He's like, oh.
He has the best stories. Look, I'm getting goosebumps. He has the best stories.
You got to Google this guy and watch some of his stuff on YouTube. Yes.
Raspy man. But he and the other guy, I think his name is Ryan, but they read their book to you, and these are Navy SEALs telling you stories of combat missions and things that they went on, and they relate lessons in the book back to having ownership and taking responsibility for everything in your life. And they're these 2 Navy SEALs sitting there telling you they're telling you their war stories. And when you get the Audible version, they will break off from the actual text and they will tell you more stories, give you more details. It's cool to listen to, but their stories are amazing, and the theme of the book really hit home. And I'd say that once that happened, or once I finished that book, things I started taking responsibility for everything, realizing that if this contractor messed something up on one of my projects, I can't blame him because I didn't give him all the exact details I needed. If I did give him all the exact details I needed, or that he needed, then somewhere else along the way, the breakdown is maybe he's not the right contractor. Maybe I shouldn't hire that guy. I shouldn't have hired that guy because he didn't do the stuff right. Because if it's as clear as day and he doesn't understand how to do it, that's on him. That's on me for hiring that guy.
So one more time, what's the name of this book?
Extreme Ownership.
I have got to check it out, and I've got to do the Audible because I love his voice. All right, so to continuing in what makes you a badass, the first A, we have advice. What is the best piece of advice you ever received?
So I think the best piece of advice is there's one saying that I go back to over and over and over again. It was probably some motivational speaker or a meme posted by a motivational speaker, but it's again, it's about ownership in your life. But life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond, because you cannot control what happens to you. You cannot control the things that happen. You can only control your response to those things. Your response determines your mindset, determines your emotions. Here's one. I had a property we were supposed to sell 2 days ago. 2 days ago. This was a house that ended up having a finished basement. Somebody else finished it off, and it had like 4 steps outside that went down to the sliding glass door. There was a sump pump outside this door, because sump pump moves water. And if the lowest spot on the outside of this house with these stairs going into this door. So a lot of water is going to come in that door if you don't have a pump. They had the sump pump there. They had a sump pump inside also, so that, 2 of them within 5 feet of each other, one outside, one inside. We had monsoons. Come down on, was it Monday night? God. And I got a call at 9 o'clock the next morning, Tuesday morning, when we were selling this house, from the buyer or from my agent. They said that the buyer was over there doing their walkthrough, and there was standing water in that finished basement. So went over there, and honestly, like I said,
the 10%.
Life is 10% what happens to you. What happened? Honestly, the sump pump probably needed a bigger pump. It's 90% how you respond. They wanted, honestly, I probably could have fixed that whole issue for less than $2,000. But they wanted, the guy was bringing $3,800 to the table to close. And they were like, it's probably going to cost a lot more than $2,000. We want you to pay for everything he's bringing to the table. So in order to get this deal closed, I had to write him a check for $3,800 outside of closing. And what can I do about it? The deal's done. The house is sold. We made a good chunk of change on it. $3,800. I never have to think about this again. It was. I feel like they took me, but I can't do anything about it now. The more I dwell on it, then it's only going to affect my life, my happiness, my days in the future, and that's done.
And by doing that, you are saving your business reputation. You did the right thing. I think you did. That's awesome. That's great. All right. So continuing being a badass, not just by fixing sump pumps here. The D in badass is drive. What drives you to be successful? And this is that question. It's that why. And, and I'm sorry for taking over here. Bret he doesn't have any children. We don't have any children besides our furry children. And a lot of times we go to these events and they say, well, what is your why? And everyone's like, oh, it's my kids. And I want to create a legacy.
For my kids. Right.
So what drives you though? What drives you to continue doing all this? And by the way, yes, you absolutely can create legacies for your kids, but for those of us who don't have any
kids, I can't say my kids are my why. So I've always, I'll be open, I've always struggled with this question. I don't have kids. What I really want in life is, I'll give you the best answers that I can for this. I have a couple of them. What I've always wanted is basically freedom, but everybody says freedom.
Right.
I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. People's motivations are either they are running towards pleasure. They want there's something that's going to feel good to them, or they are running away from pain.
Yes.
So, and with me, my pleasure would be, I think it would be great to, sit on the beach and do whatever I want to do. But at the same time, I get bored easily. My biggest why is probably that I'm running from the pain of having to work an 9 to 5 job, 5 days a week for the rest of my life. I just literally had this conversation 24 hours ago with my manager. I left my physical therapy position that I studied for God knows how many years and got a doctorate degree in. I left that yesterday, and I only did it 2 days a week, but the whole time I was there, I was miserable. I loved my coworkers, but just the fact that I got to be where somebody tells me to be at 8 o'clock in the morning, even 2 days a week was awful, and I couldn't leave. I felt trapped. I'm running from that.
So you're making enough money right now where you can easily just walk away from that.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there are listeners out there that are feeling that same pain. So here, cheers to you.
Bam.
Bam. Clink. Hold on, I'm drinking. This episode is brought to you by Truly Mango Lemonades. That's awesome. Super proud of you. Quitting the man. All right, so the second A is aspiration. And I'm huge on goals. What is a goal that you're working on right now?
Oh, man. So I have some financial goals, like a net rental goal. I have a business income goal. But I think the biggest goals that I really have are I want to set my business up so that I only have to put 4 or 5 hours a week into it. And, that's learning, that's growing. I have outsourced lead development. I've outsourced acquisitions. So somebody else talking to all those leads that are coming in. I have a project manager, just hired him a few months ago. So he is handling most of the rehabs. I'm still working with him a lot more than I'd like to, but it takes a few months to flip a house. So he hasn't even been through the cycle once. The goal is to have that automated so that I can do very little in that business, because I have other business ventures I'd love to chase down. I'd love to start. I'd love to, just, it's kind of a game now. I kind of want to try and start another business.
What business would you start?
I want to keep those things close to the chest.
That's news to me, everyone. So the first S, thank you for that. I love that goal. I love setting it up so that you only have to work your business 4 hours a week. That's amazing. So systems. What systems do you have in place that help you achieve success?
The biggest thing is putting people in place in my business so that they can take over things that take time out of my week. So like I said, I've got a project manager who goes to the job sites, who handles all the contractors, who checks on things, make sure everybody's doing their job right. That's a big one. Acquisitions, I've outsourced that. So I have somebody talking to all the sellers, which is a big one because that takes time. Between the two of those, that's like a 60-hour-a-week job, probably more. That's pretty much what we have. Acquisitions, project management, and then we have an assistant in the office to help with everything else.
One system that I stole from you was that we just added a board to we're pointing to it. You all can't tell we're pointing at, just a board to keep track of our projects and everything. So that's a huge system that has helped us that I stole from you. So thank you for that. And the last S that makes you a badass is success. So what does success mean to you?
Success means basically getting to do what I want when I want.
That's awesome.
That's really it. If I want to go to Mexico with my friends for a week straight, then I want to be able to do that. I want to have that freedom to do that. If I want to invest $50,000 in trying to start another business, I want to be able to do that and not care if it goes under because I tried. I don't want to be so attached to something like $50,000 that I'll freak out or I'll lose this or that if that goes down.
I'm gonna have to get a couple drinks in you so I can find out what this is that you're thinking about. I see it. I can see it. So thank you, Bret Beaman, for being here today. And before we go, what's the best way for our listeners to find you? What's the name of your company, by the way? We didn't even mention this before.
We are called Triangle Homes and Rehab. The best way to find us is Facebook or Instagram. Same thing, Triangle Homes and Rehab. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram also, Bret Beaman, Bret.Beaman.
Okay. And do you have a website for your company?
Triangle Homes Inc. So trianglehomesinc.com.
All right. So that's it, everybody. Thank you, Bret, for joining us. And thank you all for listening. And we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.